What's going on, everyone? Happy Monday night and welcome to your WWE Raw review for August 1st. Holy shit, it's August already. I swear Valentine's Day was like 3 weeks ago. August 1st, 2022. We are now 1 week into the Triple H era of WWE and the post-Vince McMahon era with our first pay-per-view this past Saturday at SummerSlam, which turned out to be a good show. And WWE picking back up here tonight on Raw in Houston with a very, very dead crowd tonight, but still a pretty decent Raw. Maybe we didn't see quite as many surprises or major things go down as we thought, but you can start to tell that there definitely is a different type of vibe and feel to the show. There are still some old habits that I think are going to die hard, as we saw multiple disqualification finishes tonight, but you can just tell that there's a different vibe in the air. And for the first time in I don't know how long during the day today, I was excited about Monday Night Raw. I said to myself, awesome, Monday Night Raw is on tonight. Normally I say, fuck, Monday Night Raw is on tonight. I have to watch it or take notes on it, maybe do a review, maybe not do a review. I knew all week long I was going to be up here doing a review on Raw tonight because I thought Triple H might really pull out some big guns for a post-Big Four pay-per-view Raw, and tonight was good, but maybe not over-the-top great. I saw a couple of opportunities where I was convinced we were going to get a major swerve or a major storyline angle change of direction or something like that, and it didn't happen. But still, as a fan, I'm extremely optimistic with the future of WWE from a creative sense and what they're going to be doing moving forward. And I'm really liking how they kind of set up and built up a little bit the United States title tonight. Ran a video package chronicling the history of the U.S. title, reminding everybody that this actually is a championship that has a great deal of history and lineage. And we might be on the verge of WWE actually giving a shit again about the U.S. and IC titles, and I think that's great. So we saw a couple of triple threat matches tonight that resulted in a one-on-one, and we now have a new number one contender for the U.S. title next week in Cleveland, which sets up a potentially really interesting scenario. But tonight also set up a potentially interesting scenario, and that is Sasha Banks and Naomi were all over everyone's radar from earlier today when WWE tweeted out, now that SummerSlam is in the rear view, who will make the biggest statement tonight on Raw? You combine that with some reports circulating that WWE has, in fact, reconciled with Sasha Banks and Naomi and have reached agreements for them to return, and they can be returning anytime. I don't know why WWE would go through the trouble of putting out that specific of a statement with that deliberate of a hint if they were just going to fuck with us. Are we returning to that WWE trolls the audience phase that they loved to do so much back in the day? And, Triple H might have had a little bit to do with that. I do think there is part of Triple H that enjoys doing that. But I was kind of expecting to see Sasha Banks and Naomi tonight. We did not, but I still think we can see them coming in down the line. And I got all sorts of ideas for how they can be brought back if, in fact, these rumors are true. And it's at least worth acknowledging and noting that now that Triple H is in charge, that could be a huge difference maker with a lot of talent in terms of what they're going to be doing in the company, their roles, their spots, and if they're currently not there, who they wind up signing with. And if you have a situation like Sasha and Naomi where they were creatively frustrated, now with Triple H back, he can bring them back and hopefully all can be smoothed over. And there are some reports, although there's no confirmation, but there are some reports, something in the corner of my mouth is driving me crazy. There are reports that they have, in fact, re-signed with the company and should be re-debuting shortly, but no real credible info on that yet. And of course, nothing outside of no confirmation from WWE other than the little teases they were giving us on social media. So I'm of the belief that they're probably coming back in, but we did not see that here, even though I thought we saw lots of opportunities for the two of them to come back. And like I'm going to mention later, I think if they do come back, they should come back as heels. I think they should join Bailey's faction and create, the strongest women's stable to date. We've had a couple of, three-person stables in the women's division here or there, the PMSs and the, what was the one that Naomi and Sasha had, the Team Bad or something, whatever fuck, so we've had a few, but we've never had like a stable, like a strong stable, to my memory anyway. Maybe we have, maybe I'm leaving somebody out, but there's none that I can really remember that have been a really strong, credible threat. And if you put 5 women like that together and start having them, act as an NWO Nexus type of faction where they just go tear shit up, Could be fun. So we'll see down the line if that winds up happening. Also some news on Becky Lynch coming out of SummerSlam as well. Suffered a separated shoulder. They kind of ran sort of an injury angle with her tonight. She'll be out 12 weeks-ish, 3 months. Not a terribly long amount of time, but a significant amount of time. But with Becky, she's still Becky, and I think if anybody can kind of come and do things on TV while she's injured, it's her, although they just went with the babyface turn with her at SummerSlam, so coming out there wearing the outlandish gear that makes you feel like you're on mushrooms, looks like those days might be over for her. She was dressed a little bit more conservatively tonight, just wearing all black, so with Seth, by the way. And she seemed, a lot more serious and more down to earth. So the fans really seem to like cheering for Becky. They did that tonight. And now with this little break that she's going to take, when she comes back, it should be pretty awesome when she does. And with a babyface Becky and maybe a heel Ronda on the other side, I don't know how that can't at least be penciled in right now for WrestleMania. Maybe you don't go that way. Maybe as the next few months go by, you decide to go in a different direction. But right now, if you're starting to think that far ahead to SoFi Stadium next year for 39, I'm doing Becky and Ronda again for that, especially if that's going to be, Ronda's final match. Was SummerSlam Brock Lesnar's final match? There are some reports going around that when SummerSlam was over, Brock Lesnar returned to the backstage area and was welcomed by a complete standing ovation from the locker room. He hugged Triple H and Paul Heyman, and everybody gave him a lot of props. So that's usually an indication that maybe that's the end of him for at least right now. I was surprised he even came back. If it just meant him coming back to do another job to Roman, what is he going to do after that? I was expecting him to take off, and maybe he is. Maybe he's going to be gone until next year. Maybe we do not see Brock again until WrestleMania 39, or maybe perhaps Brock Lesnar doesn't even have a contract going forward with WWE. Maybe there's an understanding that he will not go to AEW, but right now he's going to be done with WWE for a while. That seems to be what all of that indicates, although I have not really dug into any of that story at all today because I've been doing other stuff. So not really sure the deal there, but it did sound like Brock was given some serious props for his performance. That was amazing stuff on Saturday. The way he lifted that ring all the way up. I mean, maybe that was in WWE's internal plans, and they knew they wanted to do something like that for this match when it was first announced, and we all thought that it was just them being lazy, going back to the Roman and Brock. Well, I think they could have done what they did at SummerSlam. They could have done that at WrestleMania. They should have just made that match a last man standing and done this whole big bullshit there, but they did the deal at SummerSlam. It was a lot of fun, the most fun I've seen between Roman and Brock so far. Easily, I think, their best match and their most dramatic match that they've ever had, because it was so all over the place. One of Brock's best performances ever, and plus with everything they added to that match, it made it crazy. It's what really does set WWE apart sometimes, and hopefully that really is the true blow-off between these two, because a lot of fans have been complaining how many times we've seen it. I was in defense of Brock and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, but I did admit we probably don't need this one again. And then when we got it, I'm like, oh shit, we're getting it at SummerSlam. But at least it was a really fun match and a lot better than some of the matches they've had previously. And I'm one of the people that doesn't really complain too much about Brock and Roman. It's really easy to say, oh, they always wrestle. It's always those two. I'm like, not really. They've had 9 matches in 7 years. 7 of those 9 matches have been one-on-one. So that's 7 one-on-one matches in 7 years. Cody and Seth had 20 one-on-one matches in 6 weeks. So I don't think that it's really that much, but it appears to be that much to the fans because they do headline a lot of the major shows, and every time a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam or a Crown Jewel rolls around, it always seems to have something to do with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, and the fans get sick of it really easily. But I've always been of the opposite belief. I think it's been an incredible 7-year run with these two guys. And did you see at SummerSlam when Brock was standing in the bed of the truck doing his own introduction, and he tossed the microphone to Roman Reigns, and how Roman just stuck his hand out and just caught it, gave Brock that little wink? Like, these two guys have got such a chemistry. They've been together and working together for so long. And you got to think that they've really developed a pretty good personal relationship behind the scenes because of how much money they've drawn together. And to see their rivalry from where it started in 2015 with Roman winning that Rumble and then going to WrestleMania 31, to see where those two characters were 7 years ago in 2015, and where they are today, that's an amazing transformation by both guys. And the rivalry itself, not only have the characters undergone major evolution as each year has gone by, so has the rivalry. The rivalry has changed dynamics dramatically. There was a time when Brock Lesnar was the dominant one, and then Roman Reigns couldn't get over the Brock Lesnar hump. And every time they had a match, it was usually Brock beating the shit out of Roman Reigns for 90% of it. And that slowly changed little by little. Roman started getting a little bit more offense against Brock, a little bit more offense against Brock. Then at WrestleMania 34, he ate those 5 or 6 F5s, kicked out of every one before finally succumbing. Every fan got pissed about that, but I kind of thought it was cool that they actually swerved everybody. Everybody thought Roman Reigns was going to win the title again, just like he did at WrestleMania 32 against Triple H, and they had Brock win instead. But of course, the too many F5s pissed everybody off because, God forbid, we take wrestling seriously, Jesus. Or we don't take wrestling seriously because it's not meant to be. But when you saw Roman slowly get stronger after each passing year, and then when he transformed into a heel, the tribal chief, getting the better of Brock again, and then you fast forward all the way to Saturday at SummerSlam, and you get to the point now in the rivalry where you've got Michael Cole on commentary begging the referee to stop the match, begging Brock to stay down, to spare Brock the wrath of Roman Reigns. That's an incredible turnaround from where they were 7 years ago. Brock, even though Roman was a very formidable opponent for Brock, nobody ever thought it would be Roman pummeling Brock down and watching him, standing over him as Brock struggles to get to his feet. It was all reversed back then. So as a fan, I can appreciate how much everything changed as each year went by, as each battle went by. And I understand for a lot of fans it became too much, but at least they went all out for their, what I hope is final battle. And I truly hope that we do not see this match again. And if we do, it's for fun 2 or 3 years from now, or they rekindle something for a one-off or whatever. But I think this is a really nice cherry on top on what I believe has been a pretty awesome 7-year run between the two biggest stars that WWE has had over the past 7 years. So I appreciated it, appreciated the matches they had. They had some good ones, they had some not so good ones, but in terms of what they had and what they did on SummerSlam, I thought it was great and a great way to end the entire saga between the two guys. WWE ran a nice video package to the whole deal tonight on Raw, which was very cool. And if this is, in fact, the end for Brock, or at least the end for Brock for a little while, best of luck to you up there in Canada and on the farm and slaughtering cows and all that shit that you do. And it'll be fun whenever he turns back up and what he does, because that was on my mind prior to SummerSlam. In my head, I wasn't thinking, I don't think many of us were believing that Brock was going to win the title from Roman. So I was wondering even before SummerSlam, what's Brock going to do after? He's probably going to leave again. And it does turn out that that's probably the case. So yeah, we'll be talking about all that as we run through the Raw results here tonight. I want to say hi to everybody here in the chat in 1 second and make sure I can be heard. All right, we're looking good there. Good to see everybody. Welcome back again. Thanks for being here. Do me a favor, if you don't mind, those of you who are here, if you could smash that thumbs up button for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And we'll be running through the Raw results. I'm also going to talk a little bit about Ric Flair's last match. I did not see the entire card, but I did see the Ric Flair match from last night. And yeah, I'm kind of glad I had to work and I didn't spend my money on that. I thought it was a cool thing. Congrats to Conrad for putting something like that together and all the stars that were in the house. The card looked fantastic. There was some good wrestling on the show. But that was a really sad, uncomfortable thing to watch. And just Ric Flair's just life and motivation in general is just a little bit sad, but we'll talk about that here in 1 second. Once I say hello to everybody, and once you guys smash that thumbs up button for me a few times. Also, if you are not a subscriber, please do. Knocking on the door of 34,000 for the channel. We just need a few more. So if you're not subscribed, hook us up and maybe we will hit that before we go off the air tonight. But I would like to say hello to Roderick, JJ Leg, Barry MK, Big J, FRGN. Good to see you, man. I saw a little bit of your SummerSlam review. I think yesterday I was scrolling through YouTube and I caught maybe 10 minutes of it right at the end, and I was a guest on their podcast back in the day. Welcome back, dude. Nick Musser is here as well. Sunny Man, Trey Williams, Joshua Aparicio, Kaylin Scott, How Wheezy's here. So's Matos, Alex freaking Bryant. We've got Sunny Man, Dave Sims, Rarely Even. Jamari Carter is here. James Kowalski is here. Timothy Hawkins, Christian, Seba, Victor, Timothy, Sonny, Trey, I got you already. A lot of you have already gotten. Denny is in the house. Martin Can, Stephen Harris, right on. Thank you again for being here. You guys, it's been a fun weekend. We were here Friday afternoon for the predictions, Saturday for SummerSlam review, skipped yesterday, and now we're back. So 3 out of the last 4 days. You've gotten me streaming. Now, in terms of what you're going to get this week, you are going to get a few mic drops hitting the channel. Wednesday, though, is out. Wednesday, I will not be here to watch Dynamite. I've got a prior commitment, so I'll be working that night. However, this coming Sunday, we are going to be doing and returning to the classic pay-per-view watch-alongs, and I'm really excited about that. So in addition to the mic drops you'll get this week, like I said, you will not see me on Wednesday, but I'll be back up here Saturday for the podcast. And then this coming Sunday, we're going to do a watch-along, and there's 2 shows that I wanted to do in the next time I do a watch along. One of them was SummerSlam 1990, and the other one is Fully Loaded 2000, and I think that's the one I want to do on Sunday. So that's what I'm going to plan for this Sunday. One of my favorite pay-per-views of all time of the Attitude Era was that night when Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, and Chris Jericho all got big-time pay-per-view matches against top WWE stars. I believe it was Triple H, The Rock, and Taker, right, that took on those 3. And it would tie in nicely to the Kurt Angle A&E documentary that I watched last night. If you guys haven't had a chance to check that out, please do. I haven't watched the Rivals doc yet on Kurt and Brock, but I watched the entire biography on Kurt's life. And man, what a champion his wife is. Giovanni, oh my God, it really sounds, I mean, I've seen her and seen pictures of her, and Angle's talked about her, and we were aware of her, but I guess I never really knew how much she had to do with really saving the dude's life. And what a great woman. I'm glad he had the support and love of her to lean on, and I'm glad that she played a big role in saving the life of not only her husband, but our Olympic hero. And Kurt Angle, he went through a lot of tragedy in his life with his family, with himself, and, to see him come out on the other side of that and to be sober and happy and all that stuff in the past. He seems to really enjoy being a father and spending time with his kids. And man, with all the tragedy that we've suffered as wrestling fans, it's always nice and a huge breath of fresh air when you can see a nice, happy ending like that. And a really good job on that documentary. I believe the next one that's coming out next week is finally the Lex Luger one, the one that we were supposed to get on Peacock a year ago on July 4th. Now it's going to be basically incorporated into these A&E docs, and we will finally get a piece on Lex Luger, and that'll be coming up next week. So those A&E shows are still rolling. They're doing great. The Rivals and the Bios, both good stuff. So if you guys haven't seen the Kurt Angle one, check it out. It's definitely worth watching. That should do it for most of the news except for the Ric Flair stuff, and then we will get into Monday Night Raw. But let's talk Ric Flair first. Ric Flair, of course, had his big last match last night that was coinciding with SummerSlam weekend right there in Nashville. Looks like they had a pretty good venue for that, the Municipal Auditorium or whatever it was. I don't know what the attendance officially was for that, but it looked to be a couple of thousand people, 3,000 to 5,000, somewhere in there. And the card was really good. The card was stacked. There was a lot of wrestling promotions represented here. There was a lot of wrestling promotions represented in the crowd. I know on the card itself, you had AEW and Impact and Ring of Honor and AAA, New Japan. There was a lot of representation on the undercard. You had a little bit of WWE influence on there as well because you had Mick Foley and Undertaker in the crowd. Bret Hart was there. A lot of stars from the NWA. I know Luger, I believe, was in attendance for that. You had Jimmy Crockett, I think, who was doing commentary for the whole show, along with Tony Schiavone. Jarrett was in the crowd. I mean, it was a who's who of, back in the day, all to experience Ric Flair's last match. Now, the undercard, from what I saw, I didn't see every match, saw a few highlights, but not all of it. Definitely seemed to be some really good wrestling with some really good pieces of talent there. Glad they were able to have that experience and wrestle on a show that had Ric Flair's last official match. But As I've said many times, I will always consider Ric Flair's last match, 2008, against Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. Everything he's done since then, to me, has been extra. Ric Flair, got back in the ring after that, which is a big shocker to me. And I kind of thought that he tarnished and ruined his whole retirement. So at least I was happy to see that he was able to have an entire show dedicated to him. And that was great and everything, but, there was just something a little bit off and uncomfortable about it, and the fact that this man is 73 years old with a fucking pacemaker who was knocking on death's door just a couple of years ago, and we all know has a well-documented history of being unable to, let go and hang it up. And this is a guy that just continues to he's partied all week. He drank every single day and night leading up to this. He is still 22 years old at heart, but he's in a 73-year-old body. And he really had no business doing this, in my mind. For me, I just wanted Ric Flair to survive this. I didn't want him to have any lasting effects or, God forbid, pass away in this match. And I think Ric Flair might have been fine with that. I think when the match was over and Ric Flair was still alive, there was a part of him that was disappointed. I mean, he could barely fucking breathe out there. You saw it. Of course, he bladed. And he started out a little bit fine. First half of the match went okay. The last half was pretty rough. Jeff Jarrett, by the way, deserves a ton of credit for the work he did in that match. He was the best of everybody in that match, maybe the best on the whole card. First of all, he looks to be in great shape for a guy his age. But this is a guy that understands what his job was, the great heel work he was doing in the build to this thing, even his entrance coming down to the ring, getting into it with the fans. He played his role to a T, getting all that heel heat off of Ric Flair and, doing that out of respect for Flair, to do whatever he could, to make sure that he was doing his job as the heel in that match, and he was great. But Flair, as you saw him going through the match, he struggled a couple times. I wasn't even sure if he would be able to get up. But, he's open mouth breathing with blood on his face. He's like, I mean, he could not even, get his wind. He was barely moving, and the talent had to sell everything for him, and it just, it didn't look great, but at least he made it through it, and at least that is all over now, and I hope that it stays that way for Flair, because he's way too old to be doing that, and, when he came back after his retirement, he's admitted that whole thing was just a cash grab, and, he needed the money, and he doesn't so much need it now, so he's trying to have the proper send-off. And as nice as this was, that his friends and his family and, everybody was able to put this together for him, I don't know how you can never top what was done in 2008. Every single wrestler that is in the business should aspire to have the send-off that Ric Flair had in 2008. That Hall of Fame the night before, the tremendous match with Shawn Michaels, that even at that age of Ric Flair, who back then was in his late 50s, was amazing that he was able to pull off because he was in there with the best in the world. And then you follow it up the following night on Raw, the big Ric Flair ceremony with all of his past friends and opponents and tag team partners and horsemen. Everybody he's had history with were all there to celebrate him, to cheer for him, the song, the tears in the audience, Vince McMahon, Undertaker, everybody was there to give him the greatest send-off wrestling has ever seen. And it took him less than 2 years to get his ass back in that ring because he needed the money. And I've always just had a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth after that, after Ric Flair did that, because what a better way to close out your career. But, that's one problem that a lot of these big-time stars have, is letting go to the past and letting go of your glory days. And Ric Flair was really never able to do that, and he never stopped. And he's, for a guy that's had so much success, he's incredibly insecure. And, and he's this is well documented too. He's talked about all of his confidence issues and stuff that he's had. And I just never really felt like he had a reason to be that way, because he's Ric fucking Flair. Many people consider him the greatest to ever do it. But this is a guy that gets all butthurt about Becky Lynch using the man and stuff. I mean, these are not things that should concern a Mount Rushmore wrestler. This should be the last thing on your mind, because you're Ric Flair and you got nothing to prove to anybody. Everybody knows your legacy, who you are, what you did. And there's no reason to be an asshole. And he just always finds a reason to be insecure about himself and about his life. When he was on the Jericho cruise, all the wrestlers I met there, I did not meet Ric Flair because I was not going to pay $200 or whatever it was, when nobody else was charging anything, to meet him. Because he always just seems like he's hard up for money. I'm like, look, motherfucker, it's not my fault you didn't save anything with all the money you made. and now you're going to nickel and dime everybody you can because you just pissed away all your money in alcohol and alimony. And I just had issues with it. It's like on principle. That's why I was glad I was working last night, because I would have bought the pay-per-view, but I would have felt bad about it. I would have like, I do not want to give this guy any of my money, just out of principle, but I would have, and I would have watched it, and it would have been fine. And there was a lot of elements of the match that was nice. Seeing Ric Flair come out there with the big gold was awesome, but just his physical condition is so bad that, it was like everybody was just out there just humoring him, just letting him go out there, and just play and do his moves, and they had to sell for him and do all of his stuff, and it was all just for, hopefully to give Ric Flair, and that's what I hope that Ric Flair got out of this, is that I hope that Ric Flair truly, after last night, got the closure that he needed from this show and from that match, and whatever he was looking for, I hope he got it. I hope he achieved it, and he can finally never wrestle again. I mean, this guy is, he's playing with fire here, even trying to get in the ring, and you do risk legacy tarnishing when you do stuff like that. So I hope that this is truly the end for Rick, and any future appearances he makes in wrestling, it will just be an appearance, and that's it. But the show did come off pretty well. There was conflicting reports. There was a lot of people, a lot of colleagues and people that I follow and follow me on Twitter that were at the show. Saw a lot of videos from them. It looked to be a really fun atmosphere. Starcast, same thing. Would have loved to have gone to all that. One year I got to hit up a Starcast. I'll be at WrestleMania this year, or next year in LA. But the whole weekend and the whole vibe of the show and just the celebration did look to be very fun. So I hope everybody had a good time, but it did seem like there was conflicting reports from the audience and the crowd, who kind of felt like everything was hot to the audience on TV. It didn't feel as energetic, I guess, if you were watching it on pay-per-view or whatnot. But like I said, the only thing I really saw was Flair's last match. And like I said, especially at the end, it was uncomfortable to watch, and I was glad that it was over, and I'm glad that I didn't watch it live, because I probably just would have been biting my nails the whole time, and to see Flair go out like that, like I said, I just hope that's it. But 2008, I can't imagine anybody ever wanting to undo that, and he did. So I feel like Flair landed on his feet. Undertaker kind of did the same thing. Great final match. Well, maybe not a great match, but a good ending to his career at WrestleMania 33, getting beat by WWE's top guy. Granted, the fans hadn't accepted him as the top guy yet, but he still was the top guy. There was no title on the line, and they still gave Undertaker the privilege of having the main event match at WrestleMania. He goes down, loses to the top star, leaves his hat and gloves and jacket in the ring. The show was over. I literally cried. It's all I ever needed. Next thing you know, he's back in the ring against, who did he wrestle? Cena, and then what happened? His last match was good, just like Ric Flair's last match show overall was good, but it was nothing like his 2008 retirement, just like Undertaker and AJ. During the COVID pandemic, yeah, the Boneyard match was good, but, the symbolism of Taker removing his gear and leaving it in the ring, the main event of WrestleMania 30, even with the ring crew cleaning up the set and not touching the hat and gloves and stuff, to me, that was where it should have ended. So I guess, once you put yourself in these wrestlers' shoes and you look at it from their perspective, I can understand them being prone to come out of retirement or to have one more match or whatever. But sometimes you just have to know when enough's enough. And Ric Flair is lucky that he was able to have this match and get on the other side of it still alive. So, Nate, let's call it a day. Let's call it a day for real, okay? Even some of the aftermath was a bit uncomfortable. He attempted to cut a promo, then he's leaving. He's shaking hands with Undertaker and Mick Foley and Brett, a couple of guys he's got fucking heat with. Just weird. The whole thing was just weird, the little bit that I saw of it. But Ric Flair, as of August 1st, 2022, is officially retired from in-ring competition, and he had about a 50-year career, and that's fucking nuts. So, Godspeed, Nature Boy. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Ric Flair's last match. We have not even talked about Monday Night Raw yet, and we've been talking for about an hour. So let's get into WWE Raw. Let me make sure everybody's here. We're all good. Looks like we've got no technical issues. We had a couple of technical difficulties on the SummerSlam review on Saturday night, and I had to quit the stream and restart it, which affected the views and stuff a little bit. But the second stream went off with no issues, so that made me happy, and so far so good here tonight too. So thanks for being here. All right, Monday Night Raw. By the way, the first hour of Monday Night Raw tonight was presented commercial-free, so that's kind of cool. I did not notice. I don't think it was a TV 14 rating tonight, although there still is a lot of talk that will be happening soon. The show opened up with Becky Lynch. Now, earlier in the day, we did get word, WWE even announced it, that Becky Lynch had suffered a separated shoulder in her match against Bianca at SummerSlam, and she opened the show to come out and cut her new babyface promo where she was going to be humbled, and she was. She said that she fought her ass off in that match with Bianca and fought through the most painful night of her life in the ring. And I imagine that if she did suffer that injury a little bit early in the match, that probably was pretty painful to get through. And she, talked about how she has been acting since losing the title at WrestleMania, and that she hasn't been herself, and that she, she's trying to find out who she is. And at SummerSlam, she found out when she lost to Bianca Belair, and Bianca reminded her, who Becky is, and basically thanked Bianca for the ass whipping and called Bianca Belair out to the ring. So Bianca then comes out. Becky said Bianca proved herself to her and basically gave her a little attaboy, like, all right, hold down the fort until I'm back, and I will see you real soon, even kind of hinting like I might come after that belt again, but at least for right now, I respect you. You got the best of me. Hold down the fort and represent the championship and the division well while I'm gone, and she leaves. So then Bianca decides to talk a little bit. And she's like, and I know why everybody would wonder why I shook her hand when every time I've done that before, she's punched me in the mouth, but things are different this time. And as she's speaking, Becky is walking to the backstage area, and when Becky is in the back, she gets jumped by Hollywood Bailey and the Outsiders. So Bailey and Dakota Kai and Io Sky, as she's called now, jump Becky backstage. And I was wondering if they were going to do an injury angle, but since they announced that she was injured at SummerSlam, I didn't think they needed to do an injury angle, but they wound up doing both. So she leaves, she gets jumped by the heels. This will, effectively write her off TV for a couple of months or whatever they're doing. And Bianca then runs to the back because Bianca sees all this going down on the screen, on the Tron. So Bianca then runs to the back, and by then Bailey and the heels are gone, and the officials are there kind of tending to Becky, and Bianca runs up and goes, "Are you okay? What happened?" The fact that she asked what happened, I'm like, you Bianca, remember you saw on the screen what happened? So she got her ass kicked. That's what happened. So Bianca was then pissed off, and of course she wants revenge, and that would play in to what we would see later on. After that, this was so cool. This is what makes me happy about knowing that Triple H is in charge as opposed to a guy like Vince McMahon. Even like I said earlier, during the day today, being actually excited to watch Raw tonight instead of dreading watching Raw is a really good feeling. Like, it feels great to actually have a little bit of excitement for a show that even if it's not the greatest show, it's not going to be from a lack of trying. Like WWE with Vince at the helm had so many shows that just felt completely and totally phoned in, with no real true thought or love put into anything that they write down. And I feel like that's just flat out going to be different with Triple H. And one thing that seems to be probably a Triple H decision here is how they appear to be maybe on the verge of really elevating the U.S. title and the IC title again, like I have been preaching forever. Once they started unifying shit, like Roman carrying the two belts now and the tags, I'm like, well, if you're going to have only one champion, and he's not even working a full-time schedule, you should have the IC and the US be represented as the top titles on their respective brands in lieu of when your champion is not there. And then when your champion is there, it's just a bonus. And you already have those two championships around the waist of two incredibly credible wrestlers. One in Gunther, who is one of the only NXT stars that WWE has actually done right by when they've gotten called up. Now with Triple H in charge, you feel pretty good about Gunther. And with Bobby Lashley, of course, his credibility speaks for itself, and we all know what he can do. And I am dying to see this match between these two guys at Survivor Series. So I really hope that they can hold on to the titles. But Lashley, he might be in some trouble come next week because WWE has decided to determine a new number one contender for the U.S. title. That person will get the shot next week, and they're going to do that by having a couple of triple threat matches tonight on Raw, with the winner of the 2 triple threats go on to face each other one-on-one, and the winner of that will face Lashley next week. So we got our first of 2 triple threat matches up between The Miz, AJ Styles, and Ali. And before this match happened, we got a really nice video package chronicling the history of the United States title, showing clips of Dusty Rhodes and guys like that, and a lot of the old school guys that have held the title, all the great names throughout history that have held the belt, and really illustrated the long history that championship has. A ton of history in that U.S. title. And I've been saying that about WWE for a while now, that they really need to, play into their history a lot, especially now that you have another competitor out there. You're going to want to remind everybody, who the real game is. You guys have been here the longest. I really hope they start putting the numbers back on WrestleMania. They call this year's WrestleMania 39, next year's WrestleMania 40, and we go back to the Roman numerals, and you should highlight and talk about your title history and its lineage and how much history you have in the company and how much of the company can be traced back to the past. So the fact that they actually aired a video package that was narrated by JBL talking about the history of the U.S. title, that's a good sign. They're making it sound like the title is a big deal. And I wrote in all capital letters on Twitter. I'm like, holy shit, are we actually caring about the U.S. and IC titles? I'm so happy about that. And I hope the same trend continues on SmackDown. So we got the first triple threat match, like I said, between Miz, AJ Styles, and Ali. I thought this would be a great chance for maybe Ali to get a win, because there's certain guys, there's certain guys like him, even Tommaso Ciampa and a few others, that you just wonder if WWE was ever going to do anything with Vince in charge. And now you feel like some of these guys have a chance. So I thought that maybe we could see a win here for Ali. But based on everything we saw at SummerSlam, with AJ getting involved in the Miz and Logan Paul match, I kind of had a feeling it was going to be AJ and Ciampa coming out of these 2 triple threat matches. And that's kind of what happened. The finish in this was great, though. I will say that. The finish is Miz on the ground, or on the mat, Ali goes up top for the 450, hits the 450 on the Miz, but then AJ comes to, and when Ali lands the 450, AJ just lifts him right up into the Styles Clash. Really good, unique finish. Hits him with the Styles Clash and beats him, and advances to face the winner of the next triple threat that'll take place later on. So that was a fun finish there, and AJ advances. We then go backstage where we get Bailey and her crew interviewed, and Bailey says that everything that they're doing, all their motivations, will become clear soon. You will see what we're doing and what the point of all this is, or whatever, because they already attacked Becky Lynch earlier, and of course they're asked, why did you do that? And Bailey basically said, stay tuned, you will find out what we're here to try to accomplish. And that kind of got me thinking. I'm like, I'm really hoping this is more than just the 3 of them randomly attacking people. I hope there's some bigger story at play here. And after they walk away, the Usos then show up and they get interviewed as well, and they are defending the tag team titles in the main event later on against the Mysterios. After that, we get Seth Rollins coming out to the ring to cut a promo, and he's going to talk a little bit about Riddle. Talked about Riddle's guts. He goes, it takes a lot of guts to do what you did at SummerSlam, but it was a pretty dumb thing for you to do because you weren't 100% and you got your ass kicked again. And then the Street Profits come out. They come out to the aisleway. Of course, they are bros with Riddle, and they talk a little smack to Seth. He shuts it all down. Get out of here. I know you're friends with Riddle, but I don't want anything to do with either one of you guys. And they basically pitch one of them facing Seth Rollins one-on-one. And to decide who's going to get the match against Seth Rollins between Dawkins and Montez, they decide they're going to do rock, paper, scissors. They get a referee out here to officiate the rock, paper, scissors, but before they can even do it, Montez grabs the referee and just sprints to the ring. Throws him in the ring, gets in there, tells him to ring the bell, and Montez has stepped forward and didn't even play the game fairly and got the match against Seth Rollins. So that excited me for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're getting Montez Ford against Seth Rollins one-on-one. That's fucking awesome. But number two, this should be our first little glimpse of what a future with singles Montez Ford looks like. These are the type of matches he's going to have. And if this is already an awesome match now, imagine how good this very same match will be a year from now. after Montez is established as a single star for a while, maybe even wins a championship or something, and then you revisit a match, with Seth down the road once Montez is established, and think about how good that will be. So I was excited to be able to get this match one-on-one, and it was a really good match because there is a stupid amount of athleticism in this thing. And like I said, it's going to be our first look at what a singles Montez Ford looks like. The match is really fun, really good finish too. Seth goes for the frog splash, but he misses, and then Montez goes for his frog splash right after that, only Seth gets his knees up, nailing Montez, and as Montez is hunched over selling it, Rollins is able to hit him with the stomp. And we had a good, 16-minute match or something like that between these two guys, with Seth Rollins getting the win and beating Montez Ford, and that was probably the right call there. And they've been teasing, and we've been, as fans, talking a lot about the inevitable split that seems to be incoming with the Street Profits, Montez and Dawkins going their separate ways. And based on some of the teases and the hints WWE has dropped, like what they did at SummerSlam, feels like they're trying to make us think that it's Montez that's going to turn, that it's Montez that's going to turn on Dawkins. I suggested a couple of weeks ago that Montez throws Dawkins through the barbershop window, but based on what we saw tonight with Montez just saying, fuck it, I'm just going to jump in the ring and face Seth Rollins because I want to and not be fair about it, Dawkins now has he could have an issue with Montez being selfish or, something like that. And so instead of Montez throwing Dawkins through the barbershop window, I think Dawkins will wind up kicking Montez's leg out of his leg. I think it'll be a match, or Dawkins just finally gets fed up with Montez maybe showboating too much, or what Dawkins perceives as showboating. Maybe it's not really, it's just a little bit too much for him. And you go in that direction. I'm not really sure what the right call on that is, because one thing I want to be absolutely certain of is that Dawkins does not turn into Tucker, or that Dawkins does not turn into Marty Jannetty or something like that, because Dawkins is great. Yeah, he doesn't have the flashiness that Montez Ford does, but this dude is athletic and tough and pretty goddamn good in the ring. And I would hate for him just to be cast aside and forgotten about. So part of me thinks that if he's the one to turn heel, then he's going to be the heel, and that means babyface Montez is going to wind up beating him, and then what does Dawkins do? So that does worry me a little bit if it is in fact the Dawkins to be the one to turn heel. And Montez has got that charismatic look to him. He almost has that look like he's a professional football wide receiver or something, doesn't he? Just with the tats and the bling and the sunglasses and the whole look. He could be a great heel with that type of persona. The cocky, arrogant, I make more money than you type of guy. But at the same time, he's pretty damn charismatic, and the fans love him too. So I think maybe with Montez, the best route for him and the best direction to go in is to be a babyface first and then transition into that heel. Because if he goes heel first, then he's been nothing but a babyface on TV, right? Haven't the Street Profits always been babyfaces? They might have been heels briefly in NXT or something, but it feels like they've always been babyfaces. So for Montez not only to switch to singles, but go in a completely 180-degree character direction change where he's now a cocky asshole, that's asking him to change two things drastically at the same time. And that's really tough to do. Very few people have been able to pull off that full 180 like that. Triple H, actually, the guy in charge, was one of the few guys to ever do that, to transition from DX Triple H into the Cerebral Assassin, literally overnight. And how hard that probably was, and how well he did it. So, maybe with his influence, he's like, no, Montez, you've got this. So I feel like it could go either way. Maybe even WWE doesn't truly know which direction they want to go yet there. Is it going to be Dawkins to go heel or Montez? But the way I feel now, based on what we saw tonight, Dawkins will be the one to turn. Montez will be a babyface to start his singles run. And then maybe after a while, after he gets going for a few months, or maybe even a year, then you turn him heel and you make him a Logan Paul level douchebag with that type of arrogance, that type of cockiness. And if Montez does become that heel, I wonder if he's still going to be tweeting God is good every day. That'll be interesting. And if you give me a Montez Ford and Logan Paul match one day in the future, that's one I'm not complaining about. I'll tell you right now. Can you imagine the frog splashes onto the tables and the entrances and the bling and the ring gear? Oh my God. pencil that one in for WrestleMania 39, Montez Ford versus Logan Paul. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Zane G is in the house with a very generous $20 drop. Thank you for that, my friend, and welcome back. Hey, Mike, work a quick one. Since Dakota Kai and Io Shirai made their return at SummerSlam, let's say McMahon has been dismissed for his investigation and he returns. Can Dakota and Shirai return be cut short? Okay, so you're asking if McMahon were to come back and resume power. Yeah, I mean, if Vince, I don't think that's going to happen, but if Vince McMahon somehow got back into the fold and then he just undoes everything, I just can't see that being a really likely possibility. But if McMahon was put back in charge of head of creative for whatever reason, and he's back to being the final say, then yeah, nobody's going to be safe from the wrath of Vince McLunatic. However, though, Zane, I'm pretty confident that scenario is not going to happen. And even if it does, you're talking, when something blows over, that just means Vince is even that much older. And if the product is, and the fans are responding well to the product with Triple H in control, with Stephanie as CEO. And there's, you got to remember too, that's two different things. There's a business side of WWE and there's a creative side of WWE. So you got to understand that Triple H is head of creative, but he's not head of everything. So when people say, I hope Triple H makes Raw back to 2 hours, that's not Triple H's call. That's going to be a company call. That's going to be an advertiser's call. It's a USA Network call. There's going to be so many other factors other than what your head of creative wants. So Triple H is probably going to have to accept a lot of what WWE does in terms of their business dealings, their TV deals, how long they're going to be on the air, shit like that. But in terms of what you see on those shows, then that can be all Triple H. So I think fans got to remember what exactly Triple H can and cannot do now that he's head of creative. It does not mean he is the CEO. It does not mean he's in charge of everything. It just means he's in charge of head of creative. And I would assume at some point he's also in charge of talent relations, the head of talent relations. That has got to be a pretty short-lived gig. If, I mentioned this, last week when Triple H took over, I'm like, well, they just announced him as head of talent relations. They just put him back into that role. Now he's head of creative, and your boss can't be in HR. That's not how it works. So I think at some point they're going to have to find somebody to take over that role. And I'm curious in WWE internally, currently there right now, who that person could potentially be. They should let that be Bruce or something. I don't know. But it doesn't need to be Triple H. That's for sure. But yeah, Zane, I'm holding out hope that your scenario there does not happen and we don't have anything to worry about there. Spaz is in the house. What's up, dude? Appreciate the $5 from you. No plugs tonight. Just hope everyone's having a good night. Feeling good with the early spoilers of the Triple H era. Yeah, I mean, at least now, if we get a bad show from WWE, which sure as you're born, we will get plenty of them, I'm not going to have like this bitterness, like where I'm so annoyed with WWE for just not trying, for purposely giving us garbage because they're just too lazy to do anything else. I don't feel that's going to be the philosophy in the Triple H regime. I just don't. Based on his track record in NXT, how hands-on he seems to be, how much he really does seem to care, and he wants to do well in this job, do well in this role, so he can continue this role forever. Because we have not seen a head of creative in WWE other than Vince McMahon ever. So this is the first time we've seen it. So it's very possible that WWE could enter into an era of a revolving door of head of creatives if shit doesn't work out. So it's in Triple H's best interest to put forth the best product possible creatively that he can, so he has some stability in that role, and talent and fans can get used to having him there. And that's why I think that Triple H really is going to not phone shit in. Like I said, there's going to be a show or two and a match or two that we're not going to like. It's going to happen all the time. But I think overall, if we come away from a Raw that is lackluster or something, I'm not going to be like pissed off. I'm like, why do I even watch this shit? Why do I even bother watching a company that does not care at all about what they present to their audience on TV? I'm not going to have that feeling anymore. Unless Triple H, we get 3 years of the worst shit we've ever seen, but I think most likely that's not going to be the case. I think Triple H is going to do a good job as head of creative. I think there's going to be a transition period, a learning curve, and for everything to settle, and not everything's going to change right away. But you can already tell certain wrestlers that you knew Vince didn't give two shits about are going to be seen and featured a little bit better and a little bit more prominently on TV, because there was a bunch of them involved tonight, even in the triple threat match. I want to see good things for Gable as well. I'm hoping with Triple H there, guys like Gable, Tommaso Ciampa, Mustafa Ali, few other pieces of talent have something more significant to do. I know they can't all be world champion. I'm not stupid, but at least they can have something more significant to do than just nonsense or coming out and losing in front of your hometown or chasing the 24/7 title around or whatever. In time, Triple H can find roles and angles and shit for these people. And hopefully the team around Triple H can help them come up with this stuff. So we'll see how the future goes, but I'm kind of with you, Spaz. I'm feeling good about how, just the vibes. I'm not so cynical, about the product now. And even if I see something I don't like, I'm like, well, it's early. Let's see how it goes. Where if Vince was in charge tonight and we had a terrible show, I'm like, there we go again. Night after SummerSlam, night after WrestleMania. These used to be big nights. These used to be fun nights and fun Monday Night Raws. Some of the best Raws in history have taken place after one of these two shows. And in recent years, it's just been a whole lot of shit. And it's been because of Vince. It's all Vince. I put all the fucking blame on him. I'm so glad that he's gone. God bless Hush Money. It might have saved us. Vince's jackhammer may have saved professional wrestling, and I cannot stress that enough. Anyway, after the Montez and Seth match, we get a Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns video package highlighting everything that they did at SummerSlam. And like I said, that match was so fun, such a great main event. And just that visual of seeing that ring, just tilted up on its side is mind-blowing to me. And it was so awesome to see. So they chronicled that whole thing. And like we talked about Brock earlier, he's probably going to be absent from WWE for at least the foreseeable future, probably at least till close to the end of the year, although we probably got a Saudi show coming up, so he might resurface for that. And Day One has been announced again for this year, returning to Atlanta. I believe that's where it was last year too, right? The Day One show and New Year's Day falls on a Sunday this year, so it's kind of a pay-per-view day anyway, and we're going to get another Day One. And of course, last year's Day One had all sorts of problems, and Big E lost the title, and just not fun. But we'll see. Maybe this Day One will be better. After the Brock and Roman video package, we get Alexa Bliss taking on Asuka. Random one-on-one match between these two women. They don't get very much time to get going here because Bailey and crew attack the two women and jump in the ring. And the three heels beat the shit out of Alexa and Asuka. And then Bianca came down to chase them away and, kind of stand and help up Alexa and Asuka. So what I was hoping would happen earlier when Bailey and Io and Dakota attacked Becky is that Bianca would challenge them to a six-man, or they would announce a six-woman match, and then Sasha and Naomi would join Bianca. And I was also hoping that maybe we would get, like we would see later in Bianca and Io Shirai, if we can get the three of them beating the hell out of Bianca Belair, and then Sasha and Naomi run in to make the save. I wanted one of those scenarios. And I think it would have been awesome if Bianca was getting beat down by the three of them. Sasha and Naomi return. They come down. They back off Bailey and Dakota and Io, who back off, and Sasha and Naomi step to them and get right in their face with Bianca behind them, laying down, selling the beatdown, and then you do like an ECW, WCW alliance from back in 2001 where you get the big face-off and then they all turn, and they all turn at the same time, all onto Bianca Belair, and now you got five of them. You got five of them swarming Bianca, just beating the shit out of her, and they form the strongest women's faction to date in WWE. It would make storyline sense. Sasha and Bailey, of course, we all know their relationship and how close they have been in the past. Also, Sasha and Naomi walked out on WWE. So if the reports are true and WWE has in fact reconciled with these two, and there are now plans to bring them back, of course, we didn't see them tonight, but they could come back next week or Castlevania, somewhere else, and there are plans to bring them back, they're not going to be able to ignore what happened, because they went out on TV and said that they let down the WWE universe and they were unprofessional. And completely threw the two of them under the bus when the two of them had a fucking hell of a gripe. Hell yeah, I'm on Sasha and Naomi's side. Anybody who thinks those two were unprofessional is a fucking moron. I'll say that, because they had every right to stand up to stupid shit and say, I'm not doing this anymore. And I wish more talent would do it. And now that Vince is gone and some of their the root of their frustrations has been potentially removed, and them coming back to the company, that's all great behind the scenes, but you still have to explain that shit on TV. And according to WWE, they were unprofessional. So just coming back as babyfaces, as tag team champion babyfaces, wouldn't make a lot of sense, because you've already stripped them of the tag team titles. So why would they come back with the titles? And why would they be babyfaces? They're going to get a babyface reaction because the fans are going to like, holy shit, they came back. But when you think about what it means for storyline, WWE told everybody what these two did. They were unprofessional. So when they come back, or if they come back, I feel like it would make way more sense for them to be heels, because they can work them walking out into the storyline. Sasha can get out of on the mic, and Naomi, and can say, all of them can technically have an axe to grind. Bailey can make up a reason to why she's pissed. Dakota Kai can say, they released me. I'm one of the best talents there, and, best prospects, and they released me. Io Shirai can claim that she's been in NXT for 4 fucking years, and they never brought her up. And then you got Sasha and Naomi, who currently have all their creative differences with WWE. You could create a little female MWO. Might be fun with, I don't know who would be the Hogan. I feel like Bailey and Sasha might share that honor. But Io and Dakota kind of have like outsider vibes, because they've never really been on the main roster permanently. So I think a scenario like that would have been a lot of fun. So if Sasha and Naomi are coming back, and these reports do turn out to be true at some point, and then within the next 1 to 5 weeks, we see these women come back, I think being heels is something they should consider. And I think they had to really set up here, to do the big swerve where they come in seemingly to help Bianca, and then only to turn on her and form this big colossal faction, with 5 of the, toughest women in the company now, all on that one side. So I know a lot of fans too think that Sasha and Naomi should go to SmackDown, but enough of that. There's no such thing as the brand split. It does not exist. It does not matter where they come back. If they came back on Raw tonight, I don't think that automatically means they would be on Raw. It would just mean this is where WWE wanted to bring them back, and it would make the most sense to come back on Raw, because Raw is the show they walked out of. So just because they came back on Raw doesn't mean they can't be on SmackDown doing shit. So I did see a lot of those comments tonight. Oh, they're not going to come back tonight. They'll save them for SmackDown. I'm like, well, why? They can still go to SmackDown. They can still come back tonight and be on SmackDown. There's no rule that says they can't do that. So I did not think it mattered at all what show they debut on or anything. And we'll have to see if they really, 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 truly are coming back, and there's any truth to these rumors at all. We'll find out. After that, we got... Where were we? Oh, yeah. It's time for the next triple threat that will advance somebody to face AJ Styles, or I'm sorry, to face AJ Styles in the one-on-one match later. I had this match written down wrong. I have Champa versus Gable versus AJ. It's actually Champa versus Gable versus Ziggler, the triple threat match they had there. There has been some talk as well about Tommaso Ciampa behind the scenes, WWE being very happy with his performances, his professionalism, his attitude backstage. There have been talks about enhancing his character, his presentation, perhaps even returning to the No One Will Survive theme, which was great that they took away from him. And all of those sound like great possibilities. I'm really excited. And we might see something big happen next week, because Ciampa did come out of this match as the winner, which I figured based on everything we saw at SummerSlam with AJ getting involved in the Miz and Logan match and running Ciampa off. I'm like, oh, naturally you got to do these two. And they did wind up coming out of those 2 respective triple threat matches, and they would face each other one-on-one later on in the show. Then we get Edge coming out to the ring. Edge is back, of course, made his return at SummerSlam in the match between the Mysterios and Judgment Day. Edge is back with his old theme, his On This Day theme, whatever that band is called. So he's got his old theme back, And it was a pretty good promo by Edge, but like I said earlier, I was worried about Edge just coming back as a babyface because now he's just returning back to the way Edge was. But the only reason he's back to this way was because his friends in the faction that he developed after he turned on all of us and called us inbred idiots, they kicked him out. And now he's got no friends again, so now he's crawling back to us. And that's kind of the way I looked at it. But I did really like this promo by Edge because I was worried that it wouldn't make, I was like, how are they going to make this make sense? Because of for whatever reason, they decided to end Edge's run in the Judgment Day because of whatever supernatural direction they wanted to take the group in. But now it looks like the group's going to be completely scrapped altogether based on what Edge said. And he said that he originally formed Judgment Day because he wanted to help underutilized talent like Finn Balor and Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. But after what they did to him, he only has one motivation and one motivation only, and that is to end everybody and end the Judgment Day and kill the Judgment Day. And it feels like he's going to be going through these two one at a time. He mentioned Balor and Priest, what he's going to do to them, and Rhea Ripley as well. And I have to wonder if maybe Edge will recruit his wife to come help him take out Rhea Ripley. I'm not sure. But it looks like Edge's main goal here is to absolutely destroy and end the Judgment Day for good. And I feel like he's probably going to accomplish that because, one of the more underutilized talents under the Vince McMahon era was Finn Balor. And Finn Balor was a big part of NXT. Multi-time NXT champion, one of the best NXT champions they've ever had, one of the coolest gimmicks with the Demon, and this could be used as a great tool for Edge to kill the Judgment Day and maybe kill them so bad that it kind of restores Finn Balor's previous persona, and maybe it can be used as something to kickstart Balor going back to being a little bit more of who he was, and potentially even bringing back the Demon at some point in the future. So I'm hoping that Edge isn't just going to destroy these guys and squash them both. I hope that whatever Edge does to them, even if it is beating them, results in them continuing a forward direction in their career, even if it means changing their gimmick or their character or moving in a different direction. And we'll see how Edge goes about accomplishing this, since technically right now it is 1 against 3, and Edge would come out in the main event like we saw earlier and spear little Dominic, which they wouldn't do if it didn't mean something. So we'll talk about that here later on. But Edge kept the promo pretty short. I believe it was about 3 minutes long, and he got the hell out of there. Then we got the one-on-one match that was announced earlier between Bianca Belair and Io Sky. So this is a great first match to have. I do think these women, they did have some run-ins in NXT back in the day. And Io Sky, it is an absolute crime that it has been 3.5, 4 years since she's been on the roster. And with all of her performances in NXT, the title run she had there, her great War Games performances and doing trash can dives, she is spectacular. And she has remained off the main roster for whatever reason. And the minute Vince McMahon leaves, she's there immediately, which tells you all you need to know, probably. So she's got a match against the champ. Pretty good little match here. We've got Bailey and Dakota Kai at ringside, of course. So Bianca is really at a big disadvantage here. But as we saw earlier in the Asuka and Alexa match, the heels attack the two of them. So as Bianca is kind of cornered by the three of them, Asuka and Alexa come down to the ring to show support for Bianca. And then we go to commercial. We come back and the match resumes. And everything just ends in a DQ. I don't know who got DQ'd here or if this was a no contest. But as they're fighting, heels jump in the ring. Alexa and Asuka jump in the ring. And all 6 women are fighting and brawling. And we get a big DQ. So maybe next week we get a 6-woman tag between these two teams, because we have not seen Bailey back in the ring yet. And you got to wonder, when she does get back in the ring and have her first match, if it's going to be a one-on-one situation or maybe a tag to kind of slowly work her in. But this match began at about quarter till the top of the second hour. So for me, it would have started around 6:45 and 9:45 for everybody else on the East Coast. So I was thinking, based on the time, I'm like, well, the finish of Bianca Belair and Io Sky is going to come right at the top of the hour. And usually big shit goes down at the top of the hour. And we already know what WWE tweeted out earlier today with SummerSlam being in the rear view, who's going to make a statement on Raw. They were teasing the shit out of us for Naomi and Sasha. Here we got a match where Bianca's probably going to get beaten down by heels, and that's going to be happening at the top of the second hour. All the stars for me were lining up for some sort of big return here, but we didn't see it. It was just Alexa and Asuka instead. Big brawl, disqualification, and that was it. So that was the end of the possibility that Naomi and Sasha would be on the show. Once that segment and that match happened, that was it. They weren't going to have any time to show up this week. So we'll see if they turn up or if the whole thing is just horse shit and in 6 months Mercedes pops out on Dynamite. We'll have to see. But no Sasha and Naomi yet. Then we get the big one-on-one match between the winners of the two triple threats earlier on. AJ Styles taking on Champa. Pretty good-looking match between these two guys on paper, I ain't going to lie. And for these two to face off for an opportunity for a title is the type of talent I want to see competing for titles. And based on Styles kind of getting the better of Champa at SummerSlam and Logan Paul beating The Miz, I kind of thought that Champa would get the win here, and he did. A lot of help from The Miz in this match. At one point, Ciampa's basically beat. AJ's got him beat, but Miz lifts Ciampa's foot on the ropes, and Miz would wind up offering even more help and more distraction for Ciampa, getting in AJ's face a couple of times, allowing Ciampa to hit the fairy tale ending on AJ for the win and advance to face Bobby Lashley next week on Raw for the United States title in the city of Cleveland. Who else is from Cleveland? So we have set up a potentially pretty interesting scenario next week. Bobby Lashley, I love. Bobby Lashley, I want to continue to hold the United States title until Survivor Series. I want that Lashley and Gunther match. I just fucking want it. But that doesn't mean we can't get it otherwise if they do take the title off of Lashley. And as much as I love Ciampa and Lashley is a fucking mismatch. Ciampa is going to get the shit kicked out of him one-on-one against Bobby Lashley. So he's going to need some help. And The Miz is from Cleveland, so he's a hometown boy. But there's another guy from Cleveland as well that has been on a lot of people's radar, and people are wondering if we could see him back soon. You know who I'm talking about, of course. It's Erwin R. Shyster. Ready for him to come back. It's about time. He could help out Ciampa, beat Bobby Lashley for the title. Okay, I'm kidding, obviously. We know who I'm talking about here. Good old Johnny Wrestling, who is from Cleveland, who could make a big statement here, but he'd be helping out a heel. If he helped out Ciampa, he'd be helping out a heel, and then what would Gargano do? Join The Miz? I think maybe not so much a DIY reunion is happening. Maybe The Way are reuniting. Let me ask you this. Is there any rule in the Money in the Bank rules that says you have to cash in against a world title? Does it have to be a world title? Like, what if Theory, based on everything that's been happening to him, he's been getting fucking owned, by Roman and shit, and it should occur to Theory that I got no chance of successfully cashing in this briefcase against the world champion. I can't touch those belts. I'll never get them, not even with this briefcase. And he kind of just gives up. And based on how many times Lashley has fucking tapped his ass out, could he technically show up next week and cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase for the U.S. title? Because if he did, then Gargano, he could do it a couple of ways. He could either come out at the end of it, like Gargano, they could do a double swerve if they wanted. First thing they could do is just have Theory come out and insert himself into the match, and it becomes a triple threat, and then maybe Johnny Gargano shows up and helps Theory win, and The Way is partially reunited. And then, once you bring back the tag team titles, you get Indy Hartwell and Candice showing back up, and the entire Way is reunited on the main roster. That would be fun. Get Dexter Lumis re-signed too. Get his ass in here. Oh my God, that would be so fun. Or you do a double swerve. Maybe Gargano shows up in the Lashley and Ciampa match, helps Ciampa win, tearful hug and reunion between DIY in the ring. Fans are cheering, but they don't really know why, because these are two heels that just joined up with The Miz and beat Lashley, so why are they cheering? But the visual of seeing DIY reunite and hug would be incredible. And then when Ciampa turns around, boom, Gargano nails him, beats him down. starts motioning to the back, and out comes Theory with the briefcase. Because Theory knows he can't beat Lashley. So maybe he is called up his old friend Johnny Gargano to help them screw Champa or screw Lashley by putting the belt on Champa so Theory can have an easier guy to beat in Champa. Now, that's not really a great way to treat Champa. Say, hey, I'd rather face you because you're not as tough, and that doesn't really fit to what we've been hearing about WWE really wanting to elevate Champa. But wow, what a swerve and then another swerve, right? Especially if we get that DIY reunion, then Gargano turns on him. Theory cashes in the Money in the Bank to win the U.S. title. The Way is reunited. You slowly bring in Indy Hartwell and Candice to this group whenever they're ready to rock and roll, and you can have Dexter Lumis coming back into the fold somehow and bring that to the main roster. I'd like to see that. I would love to see that. So will any of that happen under Vince? Fuck no. Under Triple H? Probably not. But maybe. We'll see. Next week, them setting everything up in Cleveland sets us up for a big possibility. But tonight, we were also set up with a big possibility. I was convinced we were going to at least see Sasha and Naomi, or we were going to see some sort of big swerve with the Mysterios or something like that, and we saw neither. So just because this match is in Cleveland and it involves Champa and a title match doesn't mean shit. Champa could just tap out next week to the Hurt Lock, and that's it. And hell, now with Triple H back in charge, I would love to see the Hurt Business reunite. If they could figure out a way to get Lashley and MVP back on the same page and get Shelton and Cedric back into the group, the Hurt Business was a good business. And when you're running a good business, you don't just fold the business when it's successful. If you've got a hot dog stand and you're selling 10,000 hot dogs a day, why are you going to close your hot dog stand? That's a Vince McMahon call. Only Vince would make a stupid decision like that. So maybe Triple H is like, hey, I still think I can get some mileage out of the Hurt Business. We already got the theme music and the merch all printed. Let's just put them back together and let them roll again. Maybe as a babyface faction this time. Who knows? But next week in Cleveland, Champa, Lashley should be interesting. I have no interest in seeing Lashley drop the U.S. title unless you did something involving Gargano. If you did, that would be great. That would be great. We'll see. That leaves us now with the main event. Usos defending their championships against Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio. They pointed out that the Usos' big SmackDown title run, I think the SmackDown tags, began at Money in the Bank in 2021 when they beat, you guessed it, the Mysterios in Texas. So here we are, full circle again. This match is in the main event. And again, all these false flags. WWE had me thinking that putting this match in the main event, it feels like they would have put this match, if it's just going to have the Usos retaining, it's going to be on the earlier part of the match, or the earlier part of the show, an hour earlier. This main eventing made me wonder that maybe we might actually get a title change here. Maybe they're going to put the belts back on the Mysterios, similar to how Cody and Goldust beat the Shield when they were on top of their run. You know, when the Shield was so dominant, and I forgot, was it Seth and Roman that were the tag champs? And then Dean was U.S. Is that how it worked? I forgot. But it was Dustin and Cody, right? I think it was on pay-per-view, and they beat the Shield for the title, and the great embrace between the Rhodes brothers and the great response from the crowd. And I was like, hell, maybe the Mysterios will pull off, you know, a big upset here and beat the Usos in a great celebration. And, you know, I don't know, maybe even Edge can come out there or something like that. But we didn't get that. We got a really good match. In the end, the Usos were able to retain. I was starting to prepare for the stream at this point, so I wasn't really watching this match 100%, mostly just listening to it. Saw that the Usos got the win, retained the titles, and that's when they were immediately attacked by the Judgment Day. So Judgment Day hits the ring, they attack everybody, and then Edge comes out to make the save. There's a big brawl, and Rhea, when Edge is going for a spear on somebody, Rhea pulls Dominic, grabs his hand, and just pulls him right in front of Edge. And Edge hits Dominic with the spear. And then Judgment Day scurries away, and Edge chases them. And they kind of made it seem like Rey did not see that Rey didn't see that it was an accident. All Rey saw was his son getting speared by Edge. So now there's some confusion, possibly some dissension. I was hoping we'd see some sort of a swerve, either Dominic finally turn on Rey Mysterio, figure if it didn't happen here, it's never going to happen at all, or maybe the whole Edge Judgment Day thing is a big ruse and he's still a part of Judgment Day and they're just luring in the Mysterios. I had no idea. I was still kind of thinking in my head that we were going to see some sort of a major swerve, and we didn't really see that. So tonight we just got mostly, some storyline progressions. Here we had, Dom getting speared by Edge. That's going to make Rey uncomfortable, might even give us Edge and Rey Mysterio one-on-one in a match. That might be a way for WWE and maybe Edge and Rey to get this. Maybe they got together and say, I want to work together. I want to work together one final time. We're both baby faces. There's no way we're going to be able to work together. Maybe we can get in the ring one-on-one one final time for old time's sake. So, hey, if I spear your son, you can act mad, and then we can just have a match just to do it. So maybe that's what they were doing. I don't know. But Dominic getting speared is interesting because everybody has really been calling for a Dominic heel turn at some point, and he should turn on his dad, and maybe this begins all of the transformation in Dominic or whatever. We will see. But at least WWE seems like they're trying to move forward with certain situations, with certain angles. You can see groundwork being laid for a couple of big matches down the line. A couple of big turns coming up, a couple of returns as well coming up. And the table is set for some pretty decent stuff, hopefully in the fall and winter months, which is usually kind of a quiet time in WWE in terms of what they have going on. And I'll be really interested to see what a Triple H Survivor Series looks like. Because, Survivor Series has been a big pile of shit for a number of years now. WWE has not seemed to care much about that event at all. And maybe Triple H will, reevaluate the event and make it something worth watching again. And like I said, that Lashley and Gunther match, I think, is on everybody's radar some point down the line. So there you go. There's your WWE Raw in a nutshell. That's basically what we saw tonight. Like I said, a couple of old habits with the DQs and, typical commercial breaks and shit like that. And we didn't see anything too over the top. But tonight was to me, it felt like it was all about laying groundwork. Now you got this little, issue and these questions with Edge and Rey and Dom and the Judgment Day. You definitely got some interesting stuff going on with the women's division right now with Bailey and her crew, the rumors of Sasha and Naomi coming back whenever they do and where they will fit into this stuff. And plus you got, Roman Reigns is still your champion at some point, and he's going to have to start building his issue with McIntyre for Clash at the Castle, which I'm sure will start on Friday. And, Rollins and Riddle have got to pick up their deal at some point as well. No Owens or Ezekiel on the show either. So at some point we got to bring back Owens and Ezekiel and get them in the mix. And there's stuff to be done here. And suddenly WWE is not such a chore to watch. And I think that's good. I don't think tonight's show was great, but I saw potential for Raw being a little bit easier to watch in the future, because tonight definitely was. That first hour flew by, and it was commercial free, and it went by incredibly fast. So that's a good sign, because Raw usually goes incredibly slow. So the fact that it's going fast and we're watching things that we're interested in, we're watching matches where we generally are curious about the outcome. That's another thing I noticed about this show tonight, is that the wrestling was really good. And a lot of times on Raw, what do we say? Oh, this match again? Okay, this is the fourth week in a row we've seen this match, or yeah, we already know they did this, so they're going to do the opposite thing next week. At least tonight we did get matches that we haven't seen, two really good triple threats that culminated in a really good one-on-one match between AJ and Champa. You had Rollins and Montez, and, Bianca and Io Shirai, even though it ended in a DQ. On paper, that's a great match to have on a Monday Night Raw. And, pretty good, solid tag match to main event the show. So overall, the wrestling was great. But you still got some work to do in terms of getting your storylines and your angles and your issues really rolling into the next show, which, of course, is going to be Castlevania coming up in about a month. So, yeah, there you go. That's what's going on in WWE land, and it's been a pretty fun weekend with SummerSlam and now with Monday Night Raw. And for once, it's not so horrible to be a WWE fan. That's kind of nice. I'm excited. So I'll go over here to the chat, see if there's any more questions to answer, if anything you guys have to say, and then I'm going to go ahead and get out of here for tonight since the audience is not too high this evening. I would appreciate a few more likes if you don't mind, if you want to hit that a couple times before you leave. It'll never be the same. Roman Reigns buried the demon like Roman buries everybody. I know when you win, it means you're buried. I understand that philosophy from wrestling fans. Stop bashing Vince. He's not stupid. No, Vince is not stupid, but Vince is a terrible person to have at head of creative, and this is a decision that should have been made 10 years ago. Does not mean that Vince is completely worthless. Vince had a great life, great career. He supplied me and all of you guys with an endless amount of entertainment, but enough is a fucking enough. And that old kook has got to leave. He's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And I'm glad he's gone. I'm thrilled he's gone. I have a piece of cake every day with a candle in it and blow it out and celebrate. Got off work. Glad you made it right here at the end. Bring back War Games. We could see that. It seems to be an NXT thing, but bringing that concept to the main roster, I think would be all right. But I'd also be fine with it remaining an NXT concept if NXT can... I know there's been talk of it maybe returning to some of the philosophy of the black and gold, but maybe not the full-blown black and gold. But with the main roster already having the Hell in the Cell and the Elimination Chamber, if they want to get rid of the Chamber and replace it with War Games, that's fine. But I think War Games should actually stay on NXT. I do, because AEW's got blood and guts, and they're going to be much more violent with their version of that than WWE would, I think, just based on the, WWE's TV rating and USA and Fox and, shit like that. And they don't really tend to have a whole lot of blood. And if you have the exact same match on the other show, one's going to look a little more grittier and real, and WWE will probably paint the goddamn cage bright blue or something, the way they have the Hell in the Cell red. So I think War Games is probably safer in NXT, especially now that AEW has got their blood and guts that they're probably going to run yearly. So I'd just keep War Games there. War Games is awesome and everything, but even with Triple H in charge, I just don't know how great War Games would be on the main roster. And I'm not even sure if you really need it. You already have Survivor Series, and, so maybe do it there. Bring back CFOs. Yeah, maybe CFOs had some good hits. I don't know what went on with them and where the fallout happened, but WWE seemed to really kind of been making a turnaround. They went through a dead spell there where their themes were not so great, but then when NXT got launched and you had a lot of that talent there, and the Bobby Roodes and the Shinsuke Nakamura's and, all these great themes that were coming up and how great the CFOs did, and then their relationship crumbled and now WWE's got somebody else, and now the songs suck and they're trying to phase out all the old CFO songs. It's a mess. AEW, I think, has got a more stable theme music division than WWE. AEW's themes to their wrestlers are great. A lot of them really do. I do associate them with the wrestler when I hear them, and I never really got that feeling from TNA, and very little from WCW. Even with WCW, they had a few themes that were good, but none of them that stuck out the way the WWE's themes do, and now the way AEW's themes do. So, Greg, Raw not going 2 hours, stay 3 hours, USA Network, mark a lot of money. Yeah, I know that. I'm not expecting Raw to go to 2 hours, because what was funny is that Triple H clip was making the rounds all over social media. It was from when he was on the Steve Austin podcast way back in the day when they first started doing that on the WWE Network. This would have been like 2014 or 2015, probably 2015. And they were showing the clip of how Triple H was saying, the biggest change I would make is I would make Raw 2 hours. It's so much harder to do 3 hours and book 3 hours of TV as opposed to 2. And fans got really excited about this. They also got excited because he was like, how much more time we got? I'm pulling the strings here. When I'm in charge, things are going to be different. We can go 10 more minutes or whatever. And Austin's like, all right, we'll go 10 more minutes. But that was a bit they did on both of the podcasts. They did the same thing when Vince McMahon was on. They were wrapping up, and Vince is like, I'm the owner. Let's go 20 more minutes. And then they did it. It was just a bit to illustrate the fact that they're on the WWE Network now, and they play by no rules. So if they want to go an extra 10 or 20 minutes, they have the creative freedom to do that because they're not on TV anymore, and there's not going to be a satellite feed that's lost. They're on the network, and they own it, so they can do whatever they want. So I didn't think that was a big deal. But the part about Triple H wishing Raw to go back to 2 hours, that's not something that the head of creative can decide. The head of creative, a writer, cannot say, hey, we're going to go to 2 hours now. That's not a Triple H call. That's a company call. That's a Stephanie and Nick Khan and USA Network call, honestly. So that is not going to come from Triple H. He could suggest it when he's in bed with Stephanie before they go to bed. Hey, babe, can we make Raw 2 hours again? That would be fucking sweet. No, honey, we can't do that. We in the WWE love our advertising, and our advertising is what puts smiles on people's faces. Everybody knows that, Hunter. And then it'll never happen. So Triple H cannot control how many hours they're on TV. So just want to put that out there for anybody that might be confused. Being head of creative does not mean you make every single decision in the company. It means you make creative decisions in the company. But when it comes to TV deals and advertisers and shit like that, that's all going to be out of his hands, and he's just going to have to write TV for whatever amount of time they've decided that they're going to be on the air for. So not a Triple H call in my mind, but and I don't expect Raw to ever go back down to 2 hours, even though it would be nice. It ain't going to happen. You guys have a great rest of your Monday evening. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for another great pay-per-view weekend. It was a lot of fun. Don't forget, I will not be here this Wednesday for the AEW Dynamite Watch-Along. I will post some reminders on social media and on YouTube about that. You will have some mic drops being sprinkled on the channel this week, and then the next planned video is going to be Saturday for the podcast. And then, of course, this coming Sunday, we'll be up here for a watch-along, and we're going to watch Fully Loaded 2000. So I'll put up a link to that here real soon, so you guys can save it and hang on to it, and it should be a really fun weekend coming up on the channel. You guys have a good rest of your night. Have a good rest of your week, and I will be talking to you